Return to the fractured universe. The universe had broken. Not in a way anyone could see with naked eyes, but in the quiet spaces between stars, in the folds of reality that had once been stable and predictable. Entire galaxies existed in fragments, drifting in voids where time itself seemed to twist. Scientists had called it the fracture. Philosophers had called it the end of everything. And yet, for a few, it was a challenge, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Captain Aria Vale stared at the holographic map projected before her. Each blinking point represented a fragment of the universe, some ancient, some barely formed, all floating in their own pockets of distorted time. Her ship, the Ecliptic, hovered near a dark rift where two fragments seemed to be colliding. "We don't know what will happen if we enter," her first officer, Rynn, warned. His voice was calm, but there was tension in the set of his shoulders. "The physics here, they are unpredictable. One wrong move and we could end up years in the past, or never come out at all." Aria nodded. She had read the warnings, memorized the equations. Yet, hesitation had never been her way. "We have no choice," she said. "The signals came from here. Whatever caused the fracture, it started in this region. We find it, we might understand everything." The Ecliptic's engines hummed as Aria initiated the jump sequence. Outside, the stars warped, stretched, and folded into a kaleidoscope of colors. Then, with a shudder that vibrated through every bone in her body, they were gone. When they arrived, the universe was not as they expected. The fragment they had entered was fractured in layers, like broken glass floating in space. Gravity shifted unexpectedly, and space itself felt wrong, bending around them in impossible angles. "Status report," Aria said. Her eyes darted across the instruments. Sensors were erratic, some showing overlapping readings, others outright failing. Rynn swallowed. This is worse than any simulation. The fragment isn't just broken, it's alive, somehow. It reacts to us." Suddenly, the ship jolted violently. The Ecliptic's alarms screamed, red lights flooding the cabin. Objects floated mid-air as artificial gravity flickered. Aria gritted her teeth. "Stabilize the engines. Get us out of this distortion." As the crew struggled, a shadow passed over the viewport. It wasn't a ship, it was something larger, something moving with purpose in the fractured space. Shapes shifted within it, shapes that didn't belong in any universe. "Is that alive?" whispered Lyra, the ship's xenobiologist. Her voice trembled despite her training. Aria didn't answer. She knew instinctively, the fracture wasn't just a disaster. It was conscious. And it had noticed them. This sets up the universe, the stakes, and the crew. The story can continue to explore the journey deeper into the fractured universe. Encounters with strange entities or remnants of lost civilizations. The internal conflicts among the crew as time and space begin to distort around them. The discovery of what caused the fracture and the moral dilemma of whether it can, or should, be repaired. The shadow that had passed over the Ecliptic lingered in the crew's minds. Aria adjusted her grip on the command console, trying to steady herself as the ship continued to drift through the warped fragment. "Every system is failing," said Rynn, scanning the erratic readouts. "Engines, navigation, even life support. We're barely holding it together." Lyra floated over to the viewport, her eyes wide. "It's beautiful, in a terrifying way. The light is bending, folding back on itself. And I think I see structures, buildings, maybe entire cities, suspended in the void. But they are broken. Fragmented, like glass." Aria leaned closer, her curiosity fighting the edge of fear. "Structures? Cities? From what?" "I don't know," Lyra admitted. "Nothing we've ever catalogued. And the scale, it's enormous. There could be life, or remnants of life. Maybe the fracture preserved them in some way." Rynn shook his head. "We shouldn't linger. We need to find the source of the signals. If this place reacts to us, the longer we stay, the more danger we invite." Before Aria could respond, the ship shuddered again. This time, it wasn't the engines, it was the fragment itself. The broken space around them rippled like water disturbed by a stone. Shapes emerged from the distortion, faint, glowing figures drifting among the fragments of ruined cities. They were humanoid, but stretched and bent in impossible ways. "They're observing us," Lyra whispered, unable to hide her awe. Rynn's hand went to his sidearm, though it seemed useless here. "We need to move. Now." Aria hesitated. The signals. They were coming from a structure at the heart of the fragment, a tower of light and shadow that pulsed as if breathing. It was massive, taller than any building on Earth, yet it seemed fragile, like crystal under stress.
"Plot a course," she ordered. "Take us to the tower.
But keep a defensive pattern ready. Whatever those figures are, they could be dangerous." The ship drifted toward the tower, engines straining against the fragment's strange physics. Time seemed wrong here, minutes felt like hours, and distance shifted unpredictably. As they approached, a pulse of energy erupted from the tower. The Ecliptic's hull groaned. Lights flickered. The pulse wasn't harmful, but it carried information, images, memories, emotions, directly into their minds. Aria staggered, gripping the console. She saw flashes of the universe before it fractured, planets spinning in harmony, stars forming and dying, civilizations rising and falling. Then she saw the fracture begin. Worlds colliding, stars tearing apart, entire civilizations disappearing in an instant. They want to tell us something, Lyra said, voice shaking. The tower, it's a message.
Rynn swallowed hard. Or a trap.
It could be trying to lure us in. Aria made a decision. We're already here.
We can't turn back. Prepare the boarding shuttle. I'm going down. The crew worked in tense silence.
The shuttle detached from the Ecliptic, drifting toward the tower. As they neared, the energy pulses intensified, and the fractured space rippled violently. The shuttle shuddered, lights flashing, but held together. Inside the shuttle, Aria felt the fragment's presence. It was not just a place, it was alive, aware of their intrusion. And yet, there was no malice, only curiosity. The shuttle docked at the base of the tower. The doors opened, revealing a chamber of light and shadow, shifting and folding like the fragment itself. Aria stepped inside, feeling her mind stretch to comprehend the impossible geometry around her. And then she heard it, a voice, not spoken, but felt, echoing in her thoughts. You have returned.
You seek the pieces.
But are you ready to face the truth of what was lost?
Aria's heart pounded.
This was no ordinary journey. The fracture had a will, a consciousness, and it demanded something from them. A reckoning. Aria stood at the entrance of the tower, staring into the swirling patterns of light and shadow that shifted like living smoke. The space felt wrong, yet strangely familiar, as if some part of her mind had known this place existed long before she was born. Stay alert, she said to the team behind her. Rynn, Lyra, and 2 other crew members followed closely.
This is the source of the signals.
Whatever created the fracture, it's here. The chamber extended farther than the eye could see. Gravity flickered, pulling them sideways, then back, in ways that made even walking a challenge. The walls, if they could be called walls, were translucent, layered with reflections of other times and places. Aria could see glimpses of planets before destruction, cities that had never existed, and people who might have been from other realities.
Is this real? Whispered Lyra, her voice trembling.
Or a projection? I don't know, Aria admitted. But it's communicating with us. Pay attention. As they advanced, the pulsing light coalesced into forms. Figures appeared, humanoid, glowing faintly, like shadows of people who had lived in countless realities. They didn't speak, but Aria felt their thoughts in her mind. Confusion, fear, longing. Some seemed to plead for help. Others seemed angry, desperate. Rynn raised his weapon.
We can't trust them.
They might be dangerous.
Aria shook her head. No.
They are trapped here, like the universe itself. I think they are showing us the consequences of the fracture. A large shape materialized ahead, a figure taller than any human, its form shifting between solid and light. It extended an arm, or what looked like an arm, and touched the floor. A ripple ran through the chamber, and suddenly, Aria and her crew were shown a vision. A universe in perfect harmony. Stars orbiting, planets teeming with life. Then, a sudden shatter, a wave of energy tearing through galaxies, fracturing reality into fragments. Entire civilizations vanished in an instant. And at the center of it all, an experiment, a mistake made by beings of unimaginable power. They caused it, Aria whispered. The fracture, it wasn't natural. Someone, or something, did this intentionally. The figure in front of them pulsed, and a voice, again not spoken but felt directly in their minds, echoed. The fracture was never meant to be undone. It is the balance of creation and destruction. Yet those who return may choose differently.
What does that mean? Lyra asked.
Can it be fixed? The figure's light shifted to show multiple possibilities, paths through the fractured universe. In one, the fragments collided further, annihilating what remained. In another, they drifted endlessly, never forming new stars or life. But in a third, a slow, careful mending occurred, fragments reconnecting, guided by those who understood the cost. Aria clenched her fists.
Then we have to try.
We can't just leave it broken. Rynn hesitated. And risk destroying ourselves in the process.
Aria's eyes met his. Yes.
But we risk nothing if we do nothing. The figure extended its form further, projecting a map, paths through the fractured universe that only they could navigate. Energy pulses marked safe routes, while dark distortions warned of deadly zones.
This is it, Aria said.
The way to return the fragments, or fail trying. Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. Shadows emerged from the edges of the room, twisted, aggressive forms, remnants of the fracture itself. They moved to block the crew, hungry for movement, for energy. Prepare for contact.
Rynn shouted. The team braced.
Lyra activated the shuttle's portable shields, while Aria reached out to the figure. The light pulsed in response, forming barriers that pushed the shadows back temporarily. This place, it's alive, Aria realized. The fracture isn't just broken, it's defending itself. We need to get through it, Rynn said. Or we'll be trapped here forever.
Aria nodded. We go together. And we don't look back.
The crew advanced, stepping carefully through the shifting light and shadow, each pulse of energy threatening to tear them apart. But they moved forward, guided by the consciousness of the fracture itself, and the faint hope that the universe could be whole again. The Ecliptic waited silently at the edge of the tower, engines idling in the strange currents of fractured space. Aria and her crew returned to the ship, their minds still swirling with visions of the broken universe and the path the tower had shown them. We have a guide, Aria said, sitting at the command console. The fracture itself wants us to try. It's giving us routes through the fragments, energy pulses to follow, and warnings about dangers. But it won't be easy.
Rynn rubbed his temple. We already saw that.
Some of these fragments aren't just unstable, they are hostile. We barely survived the tower.
We have to try, Aria repeated.
Every second we wait, more of the universe disappears. Planets, stars, life, they are already lost. Lyra floated beside her. The fragments are strange. Some of them seem frozen in time, others loop endlessly. And some have creatures or beings still clinging to existence. We have to be careful not to destroy them by accident.
Aria nodded. Agreed. Plot the first route from the tower's map.
We move at dawn, though dawn is relative here.
The crew prepared the Ecliptic for the journey.
Instruments were adjusted to detect energy pulses from the tower, and shields were reinforced for unpredictable gravity shifts. As they moved deeper into the fractured universe, the view outside became more surreal. Stars twisted into loops, nebulae formed impossible shapes, and fragments of worlds drifted like islands in a cosmic sea. The first fragment they entered was relatively stable, a small, blue planet suspended near a glowing rift. As the ship descended, they saw the surface was shattered. Mountains floated in midair, rivers ran upward, and forests glimmered with strange, translucent energy. Life here, it adapted to the fracture, Lyra whispered, scanning the readings. Look at the trees, they are feeding off the energy in the air. The animals, they phase in and out of existence.
Aria's heart sank.
This universe, it's alive in ways we can barely understand. Every fragment we touch could be unique, delicate, and irreplaceable.
They landed carefully.
Rynn led the crew onto the surface, the ground shifting beneath their feet as if it was semi-solid. They followed the energy pulse markers from the tower, navigating through floating terrain and looping rivers. Suddenly, the air shimmered, and a figure appeared, human-like, but glowing with the same fractured energy that surrounded the fragment. Its eyes were endless voids, reflecting countless stars. What are you? Aria asked, holding her hand up. The figure spoke without sound, its thoughts directly entering their minds. I am a keeper of this fragment.
You are outsiders.
Why do you come? Aria hesitated, then answered carefully. We come to repair the universe.
To return what was lost. But we mean no harm.
The figure pulsed, and the fragment itself seemed to respond. Mountains shifted, rivers rearranged, forming a stable path toward the next energy pulse. You are brave, or foolish.
But the choice is yours. Go forward, and face what the fracture demands.
The crew continued, stepping lightly over floating terrain, feeling the energy of the fragment under their feet. Yet, with every pulse they followed, the universe became more unstable. Gravity shifted unpredictably, space folded in on itself, and moments of time repeated in loops. It's testing us, Rynn muttered. Or preparing us. I can't tell which. As night, or something like night, fell, Aria stood on the edge of a floating cliff, looking at the fragment's horizon. Stars twisted into spirals, and distant fragments collided and passed through one another.
We've only begun, she said softly.
And already, the cost of failure is unthinkable.
We can't let fear stop us. Not now.
The crew nodded, gathering at the ship. They would continue, facing the fragments one by one, learning to navigate their dangers, and discovering the truth behind the fracture. Somewhere deep in the fractured universe, the key to repairing it awaited. And for the first time, Aria understood that returning the universe to whole form might demand more than courage. It might demand sacrifice. The next fragment was unlike anything the crew had seen before. It was a shattered planet, broken into countless floating shards that glowed faintly with residual energy. Between the fragments, dark voids stretched endlessly, and strange storms of twisting light danced across the gaps. This one's unstable, Rynn said, checking the ship's instruments. Even minor gravitational shifts could tear us apart.
Aria nodded. Then we move carefully. Follow the pulse markers from the tower exactly.
One misstep and we're lost. As the Ecliptic navigated the floating shards, the crew felt an almost tangible tension in the air. Lyra noticed faint forms moving along the edges of the fragments, shapes that looked human but constantly phased in and out of existence. They are echoes, Lyra said quietly. Remnants of people who were lost when the fragment fractured. They linger here, trapped between moments. Aria's heart tightened. We can't save them all, she said softly.
But we can try to restore what we can.
That's our mission. The ship landed on a large, stable shard, and the crew stepped out carefully. The air was thin, shimmering with energy, and each step seemed to echo across time itself. Suddenly, a loud tremor shook the shard. Another piece of the planet collided with theirs, sending shockwaves through the ground. The crew stumbled but recovered, just in time to see more echoes appearing, some reaching for them, others fleeing. It's reacting to us, Rynn said. The fragment isn't just broken, it's aware of our presence. Aria focused on the energy pulses from the tower, guiding the crew across the moving shards. Every step was a careful calculation. Time looped strangely in places. One moment, they saw themselves walking. The next, they saw themselves in the future, repeating the same path. This place is testing not just our bodies, Lyra said, but our minds. We have to stay focused. They approached the center of the fragment, where a massive shard floated above them. On it was a glowing structure, partially destroyed but still emanating a strong pulse. The echoes clustered near it, almost as if drawn to its energy. It's the heart of this fragment, Aria said. We have to stabilize it, or the rest of the fragment will collapse.
Rynn hesitated.
How do we stabilize something like this? Aria looked at the pulse markers, then at the swirling energy around them.
We follow the tower's instructions.
We channel energy into the shard, but carefully. Too much, and we risk making it worse. Too little, and it falls apart entirely. The crew spread out, carefully placing devices that channeled the Ecliptic's energy into the shard. Light surged, flowing into the broken fragment, and the echoes around them became clearer, ghostly figures slowly stabilizing, moving as if freed from endless loops. For a moment, it seemed to work. The fragment's movement slowed, and shards aligned more steadily.
But then, the dark storms flared violently.
A shard collided with theirs, sending everyone sprawling.
This isn't just physical, Lyra shouted.
It's the fragment's consciousness reacting.
It doesn't trust us yet.
Aria steadied herself and reached out mentally, focusing on the intent of repair.
We mean no harm. We only want to restore balance. The energy responded. Slowly, the fragment stabilized.
The echoes solidified, becoming more real, more human. The crew watched in awe as a fragment of the shattered planet became whole again, shimmering but intact.
Rynn exhaled.
We did it, for now. Aria looked at the pulse markers, knowing this was only the beginning. Every fragment will be harder than the last.
Some may demand sacrifices we're not ready to make. But we keep moving.
We return the universe, piece by piece, or it will be lost forever. The crew climbed back into the Ecliptic, their resolve stronger but their minds heavy. Each fragment brought new dangers, but also new hope. As the ship rose, the dark void between the shards seemed to watch them, waiting for their next move. And somewhere, deep within the fractured universe, the consciousness of the fracture pulsed again, aware of their presence, and judging their progress. The next fragment they approached was unlike any before. A swirling expanse of darkness dotted with glowing shards, each one spinning violently. The energy readings were erratic, pulsing in irregular rhythms. The tower's markers guided them, but the path was narrow, twisting through corridors of floating fragments that seemed almost alive. This one feels different, Lyra said, scanning the instruments. The energy is intelligent, but it's aggressive, almost territorial. Rynn checked the ship's shields. We'll need precision flying. One wrong move and the fragment could tear the Ecliptic apart.
Aria nodded.
Keep focus.
We've stabilized one fragment.
This one will test more than our skill, it will test our unity. As they navigated the fragment, strange shapes emerged from the shadows, dark, angular forms that darted between shards. They weren't echoes like the last fragment, these were alive, predators of energy. They attacked the ship's shields with pulses, forcing Aria to maneuver through impossible angles to avoid collision. Rynn, defensive formation.
Aria ordered.
Lyra, focus on shielding the hull. The crew worked in tense synchrony, dodging fragments and pulses.
Even time seemed to bend here.
Aria saw fleeting images of herself and the crew in the future, crashing, disappearing, only to repeat the moment again. This fragment wants to break us, Rynn muttered, gripping his console. It's testing how we react under pressure. They reached the center of the fragment, a massive shard swirling with energy that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. It radiated danger, but it was also the source of the tower's marker. We have to stabilize it, Aria said, her voice firm. The tower gave us away, but it's going to resist. As they prepared the stabilization devices, the predator shapes converged, swarming the shard and disrupting the energy flow. Lyra's shields flickered, and Rynn's console warned of system overloads. Aria clenched her fists. Focus on the purpose, restoration, not destruction. We're not here to fight, we're here to repair. Slowly, they coordinated their actions. Energy from the Ecliptic flowed into the shard, synchronized with the tower's markers. The predators hesitated, sensing the intent. The fragment shuddered violently, and echoes of lost civilizations shimmered briefly across the shards, almost as if the fragment was judging them. Then, in a surge of light, the shard stabilized. The predators dissipated into harmless pulses, and the fragment itself settled into a steady orbit. The echoes became tangible, their forms solidifying as the fragment accepted the crew's presence. Rynn exhaled, leaning back. That was too close. Aria looked at the stabilized shard, then at the path ahead.
Each fragment is different.
Some will be easier, some impossible. We'll need courage, focus, and trust in each other and in the fracture's guidance. Lyra floated beside her, looking at the echoes on the shard. These fragments, they are teaching us something.
About the universe, about ourselves.
The fracture isn't just destruction, it's reflection.
Aria nodded.
And reflection comes with responsibility.
We can't just repair the universe blindly.
Every choice we make matters, not just for us, but for everything that exists here. The crew returned to the Ecliptic, exhausted but resolute. As they departed, the fragment's pulse lingered in their minds, a reminder that the universe was alive, aware, and watching. Ahead lay more fragments, each more challenging, each demanding new strength and wisdom. The journey to restore the fractured universe had only just begun, and Aria understood that the real test was not just skill, but character. Somewhere deep in the void, the tower pulsed again, guiding them onward, waiting for the day they would face the final fragment. The one that held the secret of the fracture itself. The penultimate fragment loomed ahead, larger and darker than any they had faced. It was a broken planet wrapped in storm clouds of shifting energy, fragments of cities floating like shattered memories. Lightning arced across the void, striking floating shards at impossible angles. The tower's markers pulsed faintly through the chaos, guiding them like a distant heartbeat. This is worse than the last one, Rynn said, voice tight. The energy is unstable and hostile. One miscalculation and we could be ripped apart.
Aria nodded, gripping the console. Stay focused. We've come this far. We can't fail now.
As they entered the fragment, the Ecliptic shuddered violently. Gravity shifted unpredictably, sending them sideways, then upside down, then normal again. The crew clung to their stations, fighting to keep the ship steady. Time is fractured here too, Lyra said, eyes wide. I'm seeing events happen in loops. The same fragment colliding over and over, echoes of people trying to survive, trapped in cycles. Aria felt a weight in her mind, as if the fragment itself were pressing against her thoughts. We are intruders. Why do you come? The voice was neither hostile nor kind, just demanding. We come to restore balance, Aria replied silently, letting the intention flow into the fragment.
We mean no harm.
The central shard appeared, a massive, jagged remnant of a once great city. It pulsed with energy, but every attempt to approach it triggered violent storms of light and shadow. The crew realized this fragment was not only unstable physically, but emotionally. It reflected the fear, doubt, and hesitation of anyone who entered. We have to move together, Aria said. If even one of us falters, the fragment will reject us.
They advanced slowly, coordinating their actions.
Rynn piloted the ship with precision, Lyra reinforced the shields, and Aria focused on channeling the tower's guidance into the shard. Every step was a test, not just of skill, but of resolve. Suddenly, the fragment reacted violently. Shadowy figures, warped by fear and memory, surged from the edges of the shards. They were echoes of lost civilizations, twisted into forms of anger and despair. Brace yourselves,
Rynn shouted.
They're trying to stop us. The crew fought to maintain control, but Aria realized something crucial. The fragment was reflecting their own fear.
Calm yourselves, she shouted.
Focus on the purpose, repair, not survival. Slowly, as they centered their minds and intentions, the fragment's energy began to respond. The shadows paused, then softened, their forms stabilizing into echoes of what had once been. The shard itself began to align, pulsing steadily in rhythm with the tower's markers. Lyra exhaled, relief flooding her. It's working. But it's like the fragment tests not just skill, but character. If we had panicked, it would have destroyed us. Aria looked at the shard, now glowing steadily. Every fragment is a lesson. Courage, focus, unity, trust, and now, compassion. We're learning what it means to heal a universe. Rynn shook his head, still catching his breath. I don't know if we'll be ready for the final fragment. Whatever's waiting there, it's going to test us in ways we can't imagine. Aria nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. The final fragment holds the secret of the fracture. Everything depends on us getting there intact and united. If we fail, all we've done will be meaningless. The Ecliptic rose from the fragment's surface, carrying the crew away from the stabilized shard. The storm clouds receded behind them, but the shadow of the final fragment loomed ahead, dark and mysterious, pulsing with energy that seemed alive. Aria tightened her grip on the console.
This is it. The last challenge.
The fracture's heart awaits. Whatever it demands, we face it together. The crew braced themselves, ready for the journey into the final, most dangerous fragment, the one that would decide the fate of the entire fractured universe. The final fragment stretched before the Ecliptic like a dark wound in space. A massive void, filled with floating shards, twisted energy, and glimpses of entire civilizations caught mid-collapse. The pulse from the tower was strongest here, guiding them toward the heart of the fracture.
This is it, Aria said quietly. Everything we've done leads to this moment. Stay sharp, and stay together.
Rynn nodded, checking the ship's systems. This fragment, it's alive in ways we can't fully measure. One misstep and we could unravel, not just die, but cease to exist. Lyra floated near the viewport, eyes wide.
I see echoes everywhere.
Entire worlds replaying their final moments, frozen between collapse and survival. It's overwhelming. Aria felt it too, a pressure in her mind, as if the universe itself were aware of their presence, testing their worthiness. The pulse of the tower's marker led them toward a colossal shard at the center of the fragment. It was massive, composed of broken cities, stars, and entire landscapes suspended mid-air. The energy radiating from it was unlike anything they had encountered, a living, breathing force of the fracture itself. "We go in," Aria said. "The heart of the fracture is here. Whatever it demands, we face it together."
The crew entered the shard.
Time twisted, folding upon itself. They saw visions of their own pasts and possible futures, moments of doubt, fear, and regret. Shadowy forms emerged, reflecting their deepest fears. "Focus on the mission,"
Aria shouted.
"Do not let this fragment control you." They reached the core, a sphere of light and darkness, pulsing with raw energy. The fracture spoke directly into their minds.
"You seek to repair what was broken. But creation and destruction are intertwined. To heal the universe, you must give more than you take. Are you willing to pay the price?"
Aria looked at her crew. Each of them was exhausted, tested to their limits, yet determined.
"We are," she said.
"Whatever it takes." The fracture pulsed violently, and the core expanded, revealing the universe's threads, tangled and broken. Energy surged toward them, threatening to tear the Ecliptic apart. Aria and the crew worked in unison, channeling the ship's power, their focus, and their intention into the core. Every fragment they had repaired, every lesson learned, strengthened them. Courage, unity, trust, and compassion all flowed into the heart of the fracture. The core responded, threads of space and time weaving together. The shadowy fears that had confronted them dissolved, replaced by glimpses of what could be, a universe whole again. Stars aligned, fragments merged, and the pulse of the tower synchronized with the heartbeat of creation itself. Aria felt a surge of exhaustion and relief.
The fracture had accepted their effort.
Slowly, the fragments of the universe began to reconnect, forming stable galaxies, planets, and stars. Echoes of lost civilizations solidified, their memories preserved. Rynn exhaled, voice trembling. "We did it. We actually did it." Lyra floated silently, tears in her eyes. "The universe, it's alive again.
Whole."
Aria looked out the viewport at the reconstructed cosmos, feeling the weight of what they had achieved.
"We didn't just survive. We restored balance. But the fracture taught us something important.
Repairing the universe is not just about fixing what's broken, it's about understanding, compassion, and the courage to face the impossible." The tower's pulse faded, leaving behind a sense of calm, of closure. The Ecliptic drifted through the newly healed space, carrying a crew forever changed by their journey. They had returned to the universe not just as survivors, but as guardians of its fragile, infinite beauty. Aria whispered, almost to herself, "The fracture may have broken the universe, but it also taught us how to mend it. And now, we continue, together." The stars stretched endlessly ahead, whole and radiant once more.